Hello everyone, welcome at the budget session for our Central Baltic Program Applicant Seminars. And we will focus quite a bit on simplified cost options as that is sort of the new thing. Technically, it's not really a new thing as we have seen many flat rates and other simplified costs also in other programs and elsewhere and previously. But still, we will use them quite widely in this new period, and we will pay quite a lot of attention to this. So let's dive in. And what's the plan of today's session? So we'll look at the budget basics. What are the most important points here? Some of you who have followed the other sessions may already know by heart, but that is great and means we will have very good projects with correct assumptions and good implementation later on. Then we'll look at making a joint budget that it should be planned jointly and submitting in GEMS, at which step and how it could be submitted in GEMS, the new system, the new EMS, sort of the big brother of EMS, the new one. Then we'll talk a bit more detail about the real costs and the simplified cost options, as I already said, and some other budget-related conditions to remember one by one. That will be quite technical, but still very, very important to remember and consider when planning your projects. So I'd like to pay attention to the main documents where all of these very important issues are stated. And on our new website, the new Central Baltic website, we have published the program manual and the guide for applying. So in context of budget, the program manual explains everything how the simplified cost options work. That's where you look for the simplified cost options. And I really advise to take a good look at guide for applying because that's where you can already now see how the application form will look like and what sections of the application form will need it to be fulfilled. And that also gives quite a good understanding of how the budget will be built in the system. So talking of budget, the total budget, as we have heard, is 118 million. And here we see the division of the budget for different priorities. And as you know, there are several objectives going under the innovative business and environment priority and one objective each for the employment opportunities and for the improved public services. So the budget basics, we have small projects and regular projects, and the small projects are up to 200,000 and 213,550 euros. And the regular projects are everything above that. We need to remember that the first projects need to be financed by the partners and that ERDF part will be received only after all the reports are approved. And that will take quite a long time after that. And it's very important that projects have enough financial liquidity to pre-finance and wait for the ERDF part to be repaid. So the upper limits, 4 million ERDF, 4 million total. I have a mistake here, we will correct it. So 4 million total per project and 2 million total for project partner. And up to 80% ERDF co-financing from the program. Then looking at the project budget, as usual, many things are as usual here. So realistic, it has to be relevant to the activities and realistic and planned cost efficiently. When you are planning the budgets, also please consider the funding available and you can judge about how many projects of which size could be for each priority. Then we need to know that application documents and reporting as well will be in euros only. That is especially important to consider for our Swedish partners. And each partner needs to contribute at least 20% of the partner budget, meaning we need all partners having a budget and all partners having this minimum contribution. So it's not possible that one partner is contributing much more and one is not contributing his co-financing quite as much. So it's quite equal, at least 20% each partner needs to contribute. And the budget will be defined in the application form. It will be approved by the funding decision. And also we will see it later in subsidy contract for the successful projects. Joint budget. So how do we plan the joint budget? So first, the partners would agree on project activities, divide those, see which partner is responsible for which activities and how much of them, and then each partner would calculate their project budget. This also is reflected in the project application form, and pretty much we would have that in the section where we have description of the partner. We would have also the partner budget in all the details described there. And then the actual budget section for the whole project would be formed automatically by the system and calculated from the application parts where each partner has put their budget in. And the application form will break down the budget in several dimensions, and we will see it there by partner and by cost category. And we'll look at the cost categories a bit later today. And I have to say and emphasize once again that GEMS is not a project planning tool and even not a budget planning tool. And when you are planning your projects and activities, you have to do it somewhere separately with your own tools, how you would normally do it. And then later only put this information into the GEMS system. So that will make sure that activities are relevant to the budget you are planning. GEMS is not providing for this. So do plan the budget side by side with the activities and consider how much will be needed. So at what point, what time we need to fill the budget part in application? For small projects, there is only one step of the application. So fill in the budget section of GEMS completely as required. So it's basically the partner budgets, and then the total budget will be formed by the system in sections D. And for regular project, for the first step application, the program requires only the best estimation of the budget, and you should add this information to the summary section of the project application and state it there. And we advise to fill this later and to make sure that there's coherence among all the sections. So check this as one of the last points before applying. And full budget will be filled later on at the second step of the application if the project idea passes the strategic assessment phase. So what costs will be used? Basically, there are two different types of costs for these projects, which is real costs and the simplified cost options. Both of these together make up the total cost of the project. And one point we also have emphasized here in red is that the predefined simplified cost options are mandatory. So for example, the travel cost flat rate or the office and administration flat rate, it is mandatory and will be also calculated automatically by the GEMS system. Here is an overview of what kind of simplified cost options the new program will use, and we will go through them one by one later on. And here in red, you see the relevant parts of the manual, which really needs to be read by everybody who is planning a project and submitting it to have a full understanding of how the budget will be made and how the project will be later implemented. So really, we do advise to read these chapters. And now let's go through one by one to each of these simplified cost options. So let's start with the preparation cost, the lump sum. So this will be paid to all successful projects, and all projects need to budget for this contribution. And there's one set amount, that is this 13,550 euros. And it can be divided to be paid to one partner, usually lead partner, if that's decided by the partnership. So, or it is possible to mark this to be split among partners in gems. But all projects, the ones that are successful and passing over the first step, or the successful small projects, need to budget for this contribution. It will be paid right after the project is approved. Now, next one, the staff cost. This is a very important staff cost category, as it also is the basis for calculating the later flat rates and how it works. So the staff costs is working in such a way that all people employed in project will receive this one set sum for hour of work. And here you see how much it is for each of the countries, and that is for all, pretty much every type of work that will be done in the project. So it would be either the director of the organization or some project specialist or secretary. All of them will receive 24 euro per hour, for example, in case of Latvia. And this will be paid based on employment contracts and report of hours. And only the productive hours will be paid. For example, if it's about vacations or sick leaves and things like that, those will not be paid separately, but those can be covered from the sum that is paid later on by the project partners. But to apply for payment, you can only for the productive hours. And here we have set, which is mentioned in the regulations, that maximum hours for one full-time employee are this number per year, so 1,720 hours per year. And in case people are working part-time, or there are other situations where it's not quite full-time employment, then we are calculating pro rata, considering the conditions present. And in GEMS system, applicants would have to add each employee and calculate how many hours each person would work for the project, and calculate the budget for staff costs that way. So once staff costs are known, we can proceed and also see how much would be the office and administration costs. So that is a flat rate, and we have seen it probably in many other situations and other programs. And this will be calculated by GEMS. It's mandatory. So whatever is the number for staff costs, 15% of that will be given to the project as office and administration costs. This money is intended for office rent, IT systems, telephone, and other costs. So yeah, here I'm giving an overview, but the full list can be found in the program manual. Always check for the program manual, because we will also be updating the program manual, and it's very important also to check the last version of the program manual that is published. And the real costs for this category will not be checked, but what is important to read this full list in the manual is that that positions listed here cannot be claimed under any other cost categories. So that's the important part to remember. Similarly, we will have travel and accommodation costs. Those will work in quite the same way as office and administration. And they will be calculated automatically by GEMS, also mandatory. And this is meant to cover the travel costs, accommodation costs, and other costs related to travels of the staff of the partner organizations. So if it is about travel and accommodation to participants or external experts, that goes to the cost category of external expertise and works on the real cost basis. But here for the staff, it's the 15% of the eligible staff costs, and we need to cover the travel costs for the staff from this amount. This brings us to the next cost category, the external expertise and services. And to see better how it works, we have made this graph. And so it will consist of simplified cost option and real costs for the rest of it. The simplified cost option is for the face-to-face events, and the real cost for all other costs of external expertise and services. So how does it look like? The face-to-face events simplified cost option. And the costs mentioned above here are for 1 day of event. The costs are applied based on the location of the event, not of the location of the partner. And they are paid based on agendas and assigned participant lists. And it's important to remember that we would need to have participants to sign separately for each day, as it could be that different people are participating in different days of the event. And again, please do check the manual for full conditions, but the basics of this simplified cost option is here. And both here and for the other simplified cost options, once we have seen the agendas and assigned participant lists, that is pretty much all the documentation that will be checked, and all the invoices about catering or room rents or other things related to this position, those will not be checked and are not necessary. Well, they're necessary in the national legislation and your bookkeeping, but they're not necessary for checking the program. So let's look at real costs of the external expertise and services. So what do we have there? And as I said, this covers travel and accommodation for external experts, the speakers, whoever else are participating in events, the target groups. It will cover trainings, other services on the operations. And there are more, but again, please do check manual for the full list. And these costs should be based on contracts or written agreements concluded with external experts and service providers and paid based on the invoices or equivalent requests for reimbursement. So this is like the traditional way how the costs are checked and then later reimbursed, considering all the documentation. Moving on next to the cost category of equipment. So again, we have one simplified cost option and real costs for the rest of equipment that could be needed for project implementation. And the simplified cost option here is the project management equipment and real cost for everything else. So what do we have here in the project management equipment for simplified cost options? It covers basically the office equipment for project staff, again, specifically for project staff. And the way how it's calculated, we have from staff costs this report on hours. So we see how many hours have been worked for the project, and out of that we can calculate how much would be paid this cost for project management equipment, so the laptops or whatever else may be necessary there. The full list is in the manual. And the unit cost here is this 0.23 euro per working hour declared. And again, the basis for the payment will be the report of hours template for number of the declared hours under staff costs in each progress report. So real cost, other equipment investments. And the real costs that are allowed are fixed investments in equipment and investments in infrastructure that are outputs of the project which remain in use by partners or target groups after completion of the project. What is important that these must be directly identified in the application form to be eligible. So no new ideas about investment and the costs here, only the things that are clearly defined and approved in the application form. And only the costs that are used solely for the project, nothing else. If something needs to be changed or added here, that means modification of the project and requires the whole procedure there. And here we have mentioned the documents that will need it. So it will be by procurement, contracts, invoices, proof of payment as usual standard way of checking, and the full list of conditions is in the manual. Talking about the small project type. So we have this option, but there are quite a few conditions that need to be observed to use this option. And here, talking about the budget, I wanted to note that in case that if total project budget remains under these 200,000 euro, then the project can only choose simplified cost options. So such projects cannot apply any real cost. That really is important and needs to be remembered when planning any small projects. Other rules. So value-added tax is eligible regardless of the situation, whether the partners can return it or not. Public procurements are always necessary and should be done according to national rules or following the EU rules, depending on the thresholds. So both for real cost and STOs, public procurement rules always need to be considered. And also for the private partners. So as this is a public program, it's public funding. Also, the private partners need to do the public procurement according to national regulations and the EU rules. Then some projects may have state aid. So here we have written how the program will treat the state aid, and the general idea will be to use the general block exemption, and that is pretty much already integrated in the program, though the partners would not have to do any additional procedures regarding that. And in case of indirect aid to third parties, still the partners will need to calculate how much ERDF could be contributed to each target group company, and this needs to be documented, and the calculation of the amount of aid and reported to the managing authority and joint secretariat. Some other things, these will be later, already after the project is implemented, but also important to remember now and to consider. So in case the communication rules are not respected, then the situation cannot be corrected. And in these cases, about 2% of the whole project budget could be considered ineligible, depending on the situation, but up to 2%. As usual, all the documents have to be kept in a safe and orderly manner for 5 years after the closure of the project, and it would be 10 years in case of state aid or in case of investments. Yeah, and here about the real costs, also quite typical how it's been done in projects. So the partners need to ensure that accounting documentation related to the project real costs is filed separately, and that all project related real cost payments have a separate bookkeeping code. Partners are responsible for their own budgets, and of course the lead partner is coordinating and has more responsibility towards the whole partnership and the joint secretariat and managing authority. But generally, yeah, these are the rules. And generally, the partner budgets are based on these jointly agreed activity plans and divisions of tasks. And we have to remember that the partner contribution cannot be covered by funding from other projects or programs, and the program accepts both public and private funds as own contribution. So that is possible. And here I also remind that in the summary section of the application form, it will be needed to fill in also the total budget and the partner budgets, the best estimate. Small reminder about the program events. So the lead partner and also other partners can do that, can foresee some budget for participation in the program seminars. Those could be on communication, on financial management, and possibly also other meetings. So do not forget this aspect, and please do budget for some program events. On couple points on implementation. So the flexibility rule, similar to what's been used before, but some changes. So the projects are allowed to overspend by a maximum of 20% or 40,000 euros, whichever is higher, of the individual cost categories at project level. And in case the changes are bigger than that, then that would require an official modification process. And even if something is changed this way, we have to remember the total budget cannot be changed. So the total budget stays as it is and cannot be changed with these flexibility rules. And if this flexibility rule is to be used, then that would need to be agreed with the lead partner first. And we have to also mention that due to the large number of simplified cost options, the real flexibility becomes quite limited. But however, the option has been kept. Here we have a list of the national controls. So when the budget will be implemented, then first it will be checked by the national controls. And here we can see which institution in each country will do that. So after the national controls, the reports will come to the Joint Secretariat and be also assessed there. And that is not all of the checking. So just for a reminder that there can be audit authority and the group of auditors checks and possibly other controls. As it's public money, the possibility of controls is there and is important. And of course, if a cost is found ineligible at any time during or after the project duration, the correction will be made. So the financial correction. And another important point to keep in mind is that if the basis cost of a flat rate is found ineligible, it will also affect the flat rate. For example, if some hours that have been declared are reduced, found ineligible, that will also affect the office and administration costs and the travel and accommodation costs. That has to be considered. And one more point that may affect after the end of the project. So if there are investments, then ERDF contribution may need to be repaid if the activity ceases or is relocated outside the program area. And yes, the reminder here in the end is that always please refer to the last version of the program manual and applicant guide and the project document templates. Those are already available on the centralbaltic.eu website. And very important to use the last one. These presentations are for reference only, but when you plan, please check the last versions of the actual documents. Right, so this is pretty much it, and hope we learned the simplified cost options well, plan well with them, and have better time with reporting, as the reporting will be much easier as not many invoices will need to be checked. That would be all about budget, and any questions are welcome.
Yes, Laura, we have quite a lot of questions coming in, so I maybe go one by one.
Let's do so.
Yeah, let's start with the first one. So the question is, will the real costs for staff be checked in case of difference, when project would need to return the earned funding by units, but not fully spent? So it's about staff costs.
If I understand the question, if I understand the question correctly, then what happens is that the hours are declared and the relevant unit cost is paid for each hour. And how it's actually paid and divided in the organization, that will not be checked. What might be checked is if the right number of hours has been worked. I hope that answered the question. So generally, the principle of simplified cost options is that it might be checked if the simplified cost option has been applied correctly, but later the money is transferred to the partners and how it's actually paid out is not being checked.
Yes, and as staff costs are like simplified cost option, then the real costs are not going to be checked. So let's go then further. There is another question related to those staff costs, and the question is, will projects need to submit time sheets and total work tables on staff work at organizations as in previous program? Actually, there are more related to these questions.
Well, but there will be a template of a report of hours for the staff costs, and yeah, maybe somebody from the colleagues may wish to comment how it compares to the previous program. So there will be a template of hours, the report of the hours.
Yes, correct. And the following question is this one by Elve Lode. This, since the country staff costs are at different levels, which is more important for the application, to keep balanced working hours or a balanced project budget between partners in application?
Well, it's not defined in such way. What is important is to show that what work will need to be done to implement the project and plan accordingly. So plan to that partner where the work will be done and as much as it will be done.
Yes, thanks, Laura. And we continue since there are more to come. Again, on those timesheets, but I think it was answered already, but just I will ask the question of Theresia as well. So when reporting hours, can an organization's own timesheet documents be used, or will there be a CB template that project should use? Will you answer? Or?
Yeah, it's planned to use this document of report of hours, and it should be standardized. We will check on that lately, but it should be a template.
Yes, it is going to be a template, and you should use this template, not your own documentation. So, and we continue with another question from Theresia. And the question is, in the program manual, it says about project management that the lead partner should appoint or subcontract a full-time project manager. Does the project manager of the lead partner really have to be full-time?
Sorry, could you repeat, please? This one?
Yes, the question is, does the project manager of the lead partner should be a full-time project manager? Yeah, I think we should clarify this as actually we didn't have previously this requirement of having a full-time project manager within a lead.
We will clarify on this one, please. Marika, maybe you?
Yeah, I can maybe just say a few words. I mean, that is a more general recommendation with the background that the lead partner mainly should ensure sufficient resources for the management and feel confident that all the tasks can be done, but it's not a requirement. We will not react if someone feels that they manage with somewhat less than a full time.
Thank you, Marika.
Yes, thank you. And then we continue with question from Annette. And the question is regarding face-to-face events. For example, in Latvian case, the lump sum is €51 for 1 day. It is per one participant, or it doesn't matter how many people participate in the event, still €51 for 1 day event.
It is for one participant. That's why we need the signatures list of the participants, yes.
Yes, thank you. And we continue with question from Anna about, so she asks whether there is no need to have budget for first level control like during previous or this programming period.
It's not planned to have this. No, it's not in the budget.
Yes, thanks, Laura. And we continue with questions from Aiga. So she asks that no costs for financial control has to be planned.
No, it's not foreseen in this project budget.
Yes, and there's one more question about staff costs. Whether a first level control will be checking only amount of hours and works done, not who did it.
It should be who did it as well, because we will need to have also the employment contracts or equivalent documents, and it will not be checked how much they have been paid and whether that goes together with how much has been received from the program. But yes, it is important to see who has done it and how many hours.
Yeah, thank you. And there are no further questions. So at this point, for you.
All right, thank you for the questions. Thank you for participating. And in case some more questions come later on, please contact us. You know our contact information. And let's ask Normunds to continue with the attachments to the project application and how to submit the project application. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Laura. So I will continue from here, and I will introduce you with those additional documents you should submit when applying in GEMS. And then I will as well tell a bit on those practical steps, what should be taken when applying. So let's start with the annexes or other attachments to the application form. And there are a list of mandatory annexes you should submit together with the electronic application form. And those are as follows: the confirmation letter and the document verifying who has a right to sign on behalf of the applicant organization, a partner contribution statement, a letter of intent, a declaration of financial capacity to undertake project activities, and supporting documentation for investments. So then let's go one by one, what is meant by each of those documents. So, and let's start with the confirmation letter. And this is a document, that you should submit with all applications, either it's a small project or a regular project. And this confirms your intentions on implementing project activities. So, and therefore, this document should be signed by a person holding the right to sign on behalf of lead applicant organization. So this document should be should be submitted by the lead applicant. So what else to keep in mind is that you should make sure that all the data included in the confirmation letter on total project budget applied amount of ERDF and partner contribution match with the data in the application form. So this then should be remembered but when submitting the confirmation letter. The second document you should submit together with the application form is a document verifying the right to sign on behalf of the lead applicant organization. So this means that only the lead applicant organization submits the document. And what could be then this document? So in this document, there should be a clear signage of that the person signing the confirmation letter is the one who has the rights to do so. And this might be either internal or external document of the organization. For example, like statutes, some kind of law or regulation, or any other kind of documents, but a legal document. The third document which should be submitted together with the application form is the partner contribution statement. And this document should be submitted by all project partners, including the lead partner. And as well for all project applications, whether that is a small project application or an application for a regular project. In case of a regular project, you submit this application in the second step. However, if this is a small project, you submit it at the same time when you apply for the project. And this document is needed so that to confirm each partner's financial contribution to the project. And yes, I didn't mention that this document has a template, this partner contribution statement. And this one is available at the Central Baltic webpage. But after you will have the presentation available as well in the beginning of next week. You can just click on the sign in this slide, and the document will download automatically from there, which is the case as well for the letter of intent, which is the fourth document needed when submitting an application. And this document should be submitted by partners of all regular projects in the first step when applying. And this one may be signed by the person who does not have the official rights to sign the documents on behalf of the organization. For example, that could be some head of a department or the head of the whole organization, and you will not need to submit any other document regarding this person's right to sign this letter of intent. This letter of intent is not needed for small projects. And for the letter of intent, as mentioned, there is a template available as well, and you are able to download it from the Central Baltic webpage. Yet another annex to the application form, which as well has a template and is possible to download from the Central Baltic webpage, is a declaration of financial capacity to undertake the project activities. This document, however, is the one which is not necessary for submitting for public institutions or public companies, though this should be obligatory submitted by NGOs and private partners, so that they confirm that these partners have the financial capacity required to implement a project. So, and in case there are investments foreseen in the project application, all kind of supporting documentation for investments should be submitted as well when applying for a project. And this should be done before the investment can be finally approved. And this may be any kind of documents related to some kind of permissions or any other documentation related to the kind of investment you are planning to. For this document, there is no template foreseen. And I see that we have some comments or questions in chat. Maybe we can have them at this moment.
Well, there was one question about when to submit these attachments. So first or second phase for a regular project?
Okay, I think maybe then let's continue with the presentation, as I see that the following questions are as well related actually to what I'm going to say. So let's continue and then go back to the questions if there still are some not answered. And about submitting the documents. So how to submit? Those all annexes, as well the application form, can only be submitted through the GEMS. So no other possible options, no sending by post or by email or any kind of other means. So you just upload those documents, those annexes in the GEMS system together with the application form. So the PDF is the type of the document we would prefer. However, there might be other types relevant of that kind of document, and they can be either electronically signed. I saw this question. So yes, you can sign them electronically or send them as a scanned PDF or similar document. So before submitting all these documents and the application form itself, though there will be some pre-submission checks. So so to say that whether those annexes are submitted. What else should be mentioned here when submitting the documents is that during the assessment process of the project application, only those obligatory attachments will be considered, not any other information. You can provide any additional information if you see it relevant. However, this is not going to be considered during the assessment phase. So, and actually, when you would like to submit any other documents, this should be separately agreed with the joint secretariat before, so with me or the colleagues. So, and there are as well some criteria to meet in the application process that the project is technically admissible, relating as well to the application form itself and the additional documents required. So, and those things should be checked as well before, so that the confirmation letter is signed by an authorized signatory. And this was already mentioned, what this is meant by. So you should as well check that all obligatory annexes are attached and that all the application package is compiled in English. So, and please check as well that all the fields of the application form is correctly filled in. Without information in the application form, it might be problematic to assess those specific questions. You, for example, will not give or provide any information on. In case still some of those criterions are not made, complementary questions from the Joint Secretariat will be sent to you with a short deadline for answers. Please keep this in mind. And in case that a satisfactory answer will not be received, the project will not move to content assessment. So this regards the first step approach for regular projects, as you can understand. So yes, maybe then this is the right time to go back to the questions, as those other things I would like to still say are already about the practical submission on the application form. So about these documents to be, there was a question I see from Anna on whether those documents should be submitted during first phase or during second phase of a regular project. So those should be submitted during first phase, so that you actually confirm if it was not mentioned separately that it is needed for the second step, in case it was mentioned. And definitely electronic signatures are okay, as asked by Tina. Then there is a question from Anna, whether there is going to be a template for document number 5 on the financial capacity. So, and the answer is yes. And you can see on the slide at this moment that there is a template to download, and you can do this in the Central Baltic webpage dedicated section to the application package. Or as another option, after receiving this presentation, you will be able to download it directly from here. So, and there is one more question from Anna about the electronic signature. Should it be strong identification, or is a PDF signature enough? I do think that it should be signed as with that original e-signature application available in the respective country. So I don't think that PDF signature will count in this case. So I don't see any further questions at this point. So we can go.
Normunds, can I jump in a little bit? Sorry.
Yes. Sure.
Just this question from Anna did make me think a little bit. And I know in some countries, like you also referred to, there are these very strong national systems and very official signatures, but they don't necessarily exist or are not maybe very widely used in all countries. So, and this whole electronic signing is still a little bit new to us. So I think before we give a definite answer on this, I would like to consult our colleague who is the expert on electronic signatures and which threshold is needed. So if we would have a very strong requirement, if we absolutely require a certain level, then we would update this to the applicant or to this guide for filling in the application, and we would update the version and make it clear. So I think this would be the safest reply at this stage. So please keep your eyes open, and we will, if needed, we will make it very clear what type of signature it must be.
Yes, thank you. And I see that, okay, this is the thank you from Anna in the chat, not a new question. So we can go on. So there is still one more question about this signature and about the signatures. Is a copy of hand-signed document acceptable? Yes, it is. And you should just scan the document and upload it in the GEMS, not send like in a paper version of this document. So that is the case with those hand-signed signatures. So, and we can continue from where we stopped. And I think this is the slide we stopped. So actually, this was more or less all I wanted to mention about the additional documents to the application form and the sending in submitting process. Yet what I would like to share as well, that there will be more detailed seminars for those projects actually submitting their application closer to the phase when the call will be open, and might be even during the time when the call is open. And just to remind you that the first call is going to be open from 10th of February until the end of March. So end of March means the 31st March of next year. So just to remind once more, the only way to submit the application in the 21-27 period is the GEMS. So no other options. So please do not send any paper documents to the Turku Secretariat, as this is going to be waste of paper and your time as well. We would like to encourage you, though, to send and submit your application as early as it is possible in the GEMS, as there might be some technical challenges as well related to the GEMS system, because the system is not ready and available for how to say submitting the documents, and this is a new system and anything can happen with those systems. So to be on the safe side, it is better to submit the application in the GEMS as early as it is possible. And once again, I would like to remind that GEMS is not the planning tool for a project. You should plan this somewhere else and just to submit the application as an application with the GEMS. And we recommend from our side that you apply at least a week before the closure ends. So would be preferred 1 week before the end of the March. What else should be stressed is after you submit the application, it cannot be updated anymore at that time. So submit the application, and then it stays in the system as it is. So, and we would like to encourage as well to get in touch with us. And the first thing is to look for this project idea form, as mentioned already more times by me and my colleagues. And this is the most easiest way as well for you to structure your idea, to present it, and to get the feedback. Then definitely you are able to book an individual consultation with all project managers. But before booking the consultation, it would be preferred that the project idea form is sent in. So in case there is some information missing, then it would be a bit not so easy to consult you and guide you. And definitely there are national contact points you can contact. There are in each country. They speak your language, because not all of us speak all the languages in the region. And as mentioned, the original, the official language is English in the program. But the national contact points might help you with answering in a local language. Remember about the website. There is, I think you should know the address. This is www.centralbaltic.eu. It will be shown later on as well. And there is a Facebook and Twitter accounts you can follow as well, in case you would like to get in touch with us. So, and I say very warm thank you for all of you. And I see that there is one more question in the chat, not really a question, but this is a request from our, how to say, a kind request from our side to fill in a feedback form. We have prepared for you, and the link to the feedback is available in the chat room. So please look at the chat and have some time to send the feedback. We are having one more session though, where someone will share some tips. So please use the opportunity to be present at that session as well. So, and thank you from my side at this point, and have a good and relaxed weekend. And those of you in Finland, please have a very good Independence Day on Monday as well. And I see there is a question from Veijo about the recording availability. All the records and all the presentations will be available in the beginning of the next week on the website. So thank you. See you other time.